I can keep going, but I
No,
don't
no,
know
no.
if you want
I
me
forgot to start the recording. That's what's happening. I had to make sure I start the recording. Sorry about that.
to. Okay.
All right, you're back.
Recording.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Mine's is very funny.
If you don't mind, this is Jessica Hooper from Project Lead the Way. I'm going to give you a little background information about our CS4Georgia policy initiative. You want to pull up the slideshow?
You mean from the beginning?
Yep. Don't worry, I won't repeat everything. We'll go a little bit quicker.
Okay.
Since this is being recorded and sent out, I do want to make sure everyone's name is heard. So Erika, if you would, take a minute to introduce yourself.
Certainly. This is Erika Moore, the Executive Director for TAG Education Collaborative.
Excellent. So Erika and I, Erika from TAG and Jessica Hooper from Project Lead the Way, were asked by the Department of Education and the CS4Georgia movement to really advance a policy agenda. And again, since we're being recorded and this might be sent out, I do want to put out the fact that this has not been endorsed by any of our organizations, but most importantly, it's not been endorsed by the Georgia Department of Education. So if we could pull up the slide.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right. We are nimble because we know how to problem solve.
No, I just realized I'm not sure. I didn't share my screen again. I was waiting. I was like, why can't she see it? Okay. You see that now?
Just for additional background, since this audience are probably made up of experts in computer science, whether you're teachers or policymakers, I really want to be mindful of the fact that this is written at a very high level. So we're cutting a lot out because we only have 10 minutes to speak. And we also want to start framing this up so that you can start sharing this with another audience in another network. That's going to be the ask at the end. So we just discussed the historical context. Georgia has really done a lot of significant work, but still has work to be done. And just to land in 2018, where we are now, this is the problem we're trying to solve. We need computer science in 181 school districts, 2,200 schools, and 1.6 million students need access today to computer science education. My partner in crime, Erika Moore, is going to tee up why this is important, and then we'll get into the policy measures that we might take.
I'm going to go to the next slide.
So I won't bore you by reading the bullets that are in front of you, particularly since you'll receive this, but just to place the emphasis in terms of when you look at where we are, where we sit in terms of opportunities or the need, and when you look at what we're actually generating in terms of talent, clearly there's a misalignment, a very glaring misalignment, or not misalignment, but we're not meeting the demand. So in terms of having enough trained teachers to even have the opportunity from a high school perspective to identify students, to create pathways, to identify pathways, to ensure that students can push forward, and not even necessarily for a 4-year program. Clearly we have a great technical school system here in the state of Georgia. There are also great programs like Year Up and Perscolis that offer everything from internships and apprenticeship opportunities for students between the ages of about 18 to 24 or even 30 in the case of Perscolis. But we still need to be priming the pump in terms of pushing and engaging and encouraging students to be able to partake of the vast amounts of opportunities that could exist for them. So again, in terms of the recommendations that you're going to hear, it is more focused on teacher development and talent to facilitate the learning opportunities, and at much younger levels, right? Because, for example, one of the things that exists here in Georgia is the fact that it was, opportunity was created where students could select programming as their language option versus just a foreign language to meet their language requirement, their foreign language requirement. which that in and of itself opened up a pathway, but at the high school level. But here again, even though that exists, that opportunity exists, there's still a staffing challenge in terms of teachers being able to, even if every high school student could make that selection, there isn't enough teacher talent to meet the need of that particular student's selection. The other thing is the disparity. Teachers, as you know, have the opportunity to choose where they want to land. And so there's most certainly disparity and some inequities in terms of how that talent is dispersed, where it's dispersed, and thus students who still, again, if they were to select it, they don't have the talent there available to them. So, you know, the recommendations you see identify kind of from a mandate perspective, something that's being requested, but also I would just encourage us to all think through from an equity opportunity. How do we ensure that even if we were in a position to train enough teachers, to ensure that those teachers are being equally disseminated to more varying environments? And I'm speaking both from a rural perspective as well as from an underserved and underrepresented perspective, because there's still a gross disparity that exists in that space and from that lens. But like I said, those are just, you know, general bullet points about where we sit and, you know, in terms of where we sit for our state. But you can read that. The bigger pieces are we need talent and we need equity.
Thanks, Erika.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have lots of time, guys, for questions. So please make a note of your questions and feel free when we come to Q&A to put them in the chat box so that we don't, in fact, I would prefer when we get to Q&A, put your questions in the chat box. It forces you to be concise and so that others can also get their questions answered. So don't have to do it right now. You can if you want to, but we'll go ahead and let these guys finish up, and then I'll have Mr. Kenneth Mason from the Georgia Board of Education also have a chance to speak from his perspective. And then we'll get started on the question. So Jessica, please continue.
Okay, can you advance the slide?
Are you sure?
I'm sure. All right. So based on everything Erika just said, this is our vision. We want to see all K-12 students in Georgia having access to computer science courses during the school day, regardless of their zip code. I think Erika articulated really well the fact that we want to make sure kids in rural Georgia have access, kids in underrepresented communities have access, so every student has a chance to have access to a computer science course. Can you advance? So how do we do this? You know, I mentioned before, this organization, CS4GA, has been in existence now for a couple of years and has really been tackling this mammoth of an issue from multiple perspectives. And it certainly is an honor and a pleasure to work with Erika Moore on the policy side of this. So our goal, one, is to increase awareness in the relevance of computer science education. And two, as we mentioned before, expand access. That's where we're really hitting hard, is around expanding access. Can you advance? So the barriers. Awareness is the biggest piece, and that's where this group and hopefully people that we share this with come into play. As we advocate for computer science, more and more people seem to have an unawareness or very discomfort, a strong discomfort with the subject. Computer science, in some sense of the word, is a very foreign subject, especially in the space of policy. Policymakers do not like to talk about things they're uncomfortable with. Because you're afraid you're going to look bad. If you don't know the content really well, then you run the risk of looking silly, and no policymaker wants that. The other big issue is trained teachers. Erika hit home on that. And of course, time and money. Any superintendent will tell you, well, great, thanks for adding another thing on my list of things to do. I don't have the time to fit this in the school day. And money. So you want me to train a teacher? Well, how are we going to pay for it, right? Or how am I going to pay for the equipment, supplies, or curriculum? So those are the four, I think, biggest challenges that our team is trying to tackle. And I can tell you that we've spent a lot of time really thinking through how to address this in the most proper, equitable way without compromising quality. And if you've ever taken an economics course, you know that's really hard. Can you advance? All right, so today's situation, this is just nationally. Someday we could have a global conversation. But across the nation, 4 states already require every school to offer computer science. 2 states use their ESSA plan to drive access, and 33 states across the country have taken really aggressive policy measures to expand access.
What is the ESSA plan, state plan?
Sure, it's the Every Student Succeeds Act. It's following No Child Left Behind. So it's federal legislation that addresses state accountability plans.
Okay.
We could have a whole webinar on that. So, that's 2 sentences. So, of course, our team is made up of some really smart people, and this is our stakeholder analysis. We go deep in each of these sections. I'm just listing the names off. And frankly, everyone in this call fits in multiple buckets here, right? All of us are one or more. Some of us are parents, teachers, districts, but we all look at this differently. So it's really important to think about the different perspectives. The bottom line is the one in bold: taxpayers. When we're thinking about a policy conversation, policymakers are motivated by taxpayers. They're the voters. So we've got to ultimately really think about what they're going to say to help a policymaker make this decision, because they're the ones who are going to pay for it. Next slide. So I said, who cares? Well, we care, right? Everyone in this group. But frankly, not just everyone in this call, all of these organizations have spent the time to come together as part of this coalition. I won't read the list of these organizations, but they have committed time and leadership to this cause. So we get together sometimes twice a month to figure out how we can address this and develop a strategy. As you know, we're in the midst of an election cycle, so we all have to be very nimble as well. So we're talking to people that are running for office on both sides of the aisle. We are talking to both gubernatorial candidates, and we're really making sure that everybody's covered, frankly, that we are really covering our bases. To move on. So these are the options, and there are more, but these are the 3 big ones that keep coming up over and over again. A mandate, as Erika mentioned, mandating every school offer computer science, including computer science in the state accountability system. That goes back to the ESSA reference. I think Ken Mason could talk about that, or Brian as well. We could incentivize adoption with bonus funding, but we'll have to be really creative and find new sources, new revenue sources. I want to advance the slide. So our recommendation, after a lot of thought, and again, full disclaimer, this has not been endorsed by any particular organization, and most importantly, this has not been endorsed by the Georgia Department of Education. However, our coalition is recommending that the legislature mandate a computer science course offering in every public K-12 school with a budget request of $5 million for PD.
For the next, in the next budget cycle?
Yep, yes, okay. We would propose this in the next budget cycle. We would, of course, there's more details. It would be a 2 to 3 year phase-in approach. We wouldn't expect $5 million to be included right away, but that would be our ask.
Okay.
Speaking of our ask of this group is really to communicate and break down barriers around computer science. We cannot do this alone. Frankly, the people in our coalition are not computer science experts. We know enough. I'm not a computer scientist, but my organization writes curriculum in this space, and we're very strong in computer science organizationally. As a parent, as an entrepreneur, I certainly understand the demand. So I work pretty tirelessly trying to explain to my personal network the importance of computer science, and that's what we need you to do, because a tidal wave is coming. Machine learning, the robot takeover. There's not going to be a robot takeover, but machine learning is a real thing. And if we don't have students that understand how to fix and repair machines, we're going to have students who become adults that don't have a job. So we really need all of the people on this call to start expanding the conversation around computer science. That's our big ask of you. And then when you're comfortable in that space, reach out to your state legislator, and inform them of the significance of the Computer Science Education Coalition. Last one. You can check out the CS4Georgia website, and please spread the word. Thank you.
Thank you for the CS4Georgia plug. And by the way, if any of you are not receiving CS4Georgia MailChimp updates, please go to that website. And at the top, you'll see Join Us button. Please click that, and you will be taken to a form to fill out on our MailChimp account, and you'll stay updated. Feel free to please encourage others to do the same so we stay updated. Kenneth, I was going to move to you. Let me find you here and unmute you. Would you mind just speaking to some of the I'll go to the recommendation slide, but you can tell me to go anywhere else. But I was particularly interested. This was the options, and this is the recommendation. Is it okay to start here? If you could just remind everybody again, Kenneth, who you are and what you do in terms of the DOE, so we have.
Well, yeah. Hi, everybody. I think I'm here in for a lot of different reasons. Okay. Because, like I am prepared. Like the first thing that's hitting me is I needed to do this for my first grader and my preschooler, because it's here and now, and I see it, and so. Like, as in my advocacy of this work, I'm trying to connect as many dots as possible, including that parent voice that could actually push legislation on this. Because me speaking as a state board member going across the street, that gets more political, but that's possible. But we, in my neighborhood, for example, speaking about the need for, talent, specifically talent. How do we get talent in all of our communities that could give students access to the courses and opportunities that we have? So I think as far as this goal, the mandate for a computer science course, could you go to the next slide as well? That mandate from the legislature.
Oh, sorry.
No, yeah, and then the second one there, the accountability system. Those two things are going to be, I think we can get there, but we're not ready for that yet. We know that it's necessary more in order to move the needle, but I think there's components that this group already has in place that can get us there. The accountability system is not going to, like the CCRPI changing elements of that. It's like a domino effect, right? All the scoring changes, and there's also a factor that I feel from the department when those changes are made, that they feel some anxiety over the reaction that they get from those changes. Although they may be good changes and necessary. But mandating a computer science course offerings is going to go along the same lines that I think of as how we have reshaped our understanding of what language is and how students can get credit for that language. That seemed to, Brian, didn't you think that seemed to go over well? Like that, I mean, it took some advocacy for people to be able to see computer science as a language requirement. But I think that process,
we're excited about it now.
Right. We're excited about it now. We brag about it now, Like this is something that is, but the process takes some time. One thing that I like to think in terms of policy and incentives, I'm seeing a lot of innovation grants and rural community grants and partnership grants, and a lot of funding being able to go to STEM programming and really innovative educational programs that connect learning with workforce development. And we have it here. I'm wondering how teacher talent, the conversation around incentives in rural areas, these grants, how we kind of move all this together to solve our problem of we have to get talent secured and a pipeline of talent coming in, so there's a foundation for students to have access to these things. And the challenge, I mean, we've talked about it before. Are we pulling from? We talk about this concept a lot in the state board of we have a mathematics challenge all around our state, especially in rural Georgia. But it's a talent. We need more qualified math teachers to teach in rural areas, and therefore to be from those rural areas in some cases. So how do we we're pulling from the same group, but how do we stimulate that community through, it just seems backwards to me. They're saying, okay, we'll give money and grants and incentives for if you do this, but the talent doesn't exist. How do we incentivize getting the talent, securing the talent, building the talent?
Great. Thank you. And
I know.
All right, Brian's going to kick us off. So at this point, our three main guests have shared their perspective. So very eager to hear from all of you. And also a special welcome to Rafi Santo, who is from CS4All. I don't know who invited you, but you're welcome. From NYC, you know me. And so we're excited. Thank you guys for presenting. Brian's going to kick us off with questions. So please start lining up your questions. Feel free to ask about anything. But I am particularly interested in this call helping to guide next steps in terms of what you heard from our fearless leaders in the CS policy arena. What do you think? And what are your thoughts on what each of us needs information or resources to do our job of what Kenneth was saying as a parent, as a student, as a principal? What can each person do from their perspective? So please start asking your questions, and Brian's going to kick us off with some suggestions.
Kenneth, so as a parent and as a state board member, how do you feel about integration? Because while you were talking, you were saying that we're pulling from the same pool. But the idea of integrating computer science into existing content areas means that we would get one person and they would potentially be a math and computer science person, or a computer science and physics person, or a computer science and ELA person. And that way that pool doesn't get lessened. Just one person is able to satisfy all of those criteria.
Yeah, I would say let's start it with a computer science and elementary person. So the foundation is set. So as they are understanding computational thinking and number sense using like the traditional number bonds and like how they teach math in elementary school, that at the same time that teacher is prepared to be able to translate that into computer science. Yeah, I would, as an endorsement, is that what you're thinking?
Well, I know that right now we're working on a pre-calculus integrated with computer science course. But if we want elementary school teachers to be able to incorporate computer science into their already existing lesson, so kind of like what Jessica said, you don't want to heap anything else on top of their plate. Perhaps some professional development that would teach the elementary school teachers how to integrate computer science into their, story time, or like I've seen teachers use Scratch to tell stories, or talk about math concepts using robots and things like that. So perhaps some PD around that.
I think somebody's accidentally sharing their screen. I think, oh, there we go. Thank you. One question is from CB. What role can online learning play in equity for CS offerings across the state and in helping the teacher pipeline? Anybody feel comfortable answering that question? What role can online learning play in equity for CS offerings across the state and in helping the teacher pipeline? Jessica? Oh, we can't hear you.
I can take the first stab.
Okay.
I think virtual learning is definitely a part of the solution around the teacher shortage issue across the state. I think right now, I love what you said about integration with the elementary teachers and having a potentially, I love what you said about elementary, but I also think that at the high school level, we see this happen with really higher end math classes, that there's not a ton of kids that are interested or unfortunately pursuing. So what they do, what I've seen schools do in the past, is have maybe sharing a feature and have a virtual learning environment. Why can't we do that with computer science so that we can reach everybody, right? So you have one teacher that might be teaching 200 kids in 4 different schools, anywhere in the state.
Great, thank you. And one of the things we can partner up on the CS4Georgia and Georgia DOE side is Brian has a data committee that we support, and we're going to, one of the things that can come out from the policy end is you guys can guide us on what you need in terms of data, and you've already done that. You've had several conversations already. So for example, I'm thinking, what would policymakers be interested in terms of online learning? So Georgia virtual learning, Gabs, how many people are using it in terms of computer science education? How effective is it? Who is it working for? Who is it not working for? Issues of equity around online learning. So with each key idea, I think we need some key metrics for people like Kenneth so that he can answer questions and then we can answer questions, as he mentioned, as parents and advocates. So I think for each big idea we have, we need to make sure that Brian and I work to coordinate key metrics. Now, it doesn't have to be everything. We don't want to overwhelm with people, but what are the most meaningful things that people like Kenneth will get asked, and you guys will get asked, and all of us, by policymakers and principals? That's another key person deciding curriculum and helping to guide curriculum in a school. They'll want to know how effective something is for their kids, how affordable it is, and how easily can I get it up and going. Great. Yes.
The other thing I want to touch on that, to your point, Co, is that from the quality is a part of what's come to the conversation in regards to that. So, for example, Georgia Partnership for Excellence in Education just hosted their pre-planning session for their 2019 outlook. Right? They do top 10 things to watch. They produce that book annually. And they had their pre-planning session for that. And so clearly online learning came up as a topic area. You had about 30 people in the room representing a host of everything being seated in that particular room. And some of the quality standards around online education was one of the concerns, right? There were varying viewpoints about it. There is at least if it's offered for those who can't get access to, then in some essence, you're filling the gap or closing the gap. But if it's not the same, if it's not equitable in terms of the quality or the standards, because there aren't necessarily standards that are placed around what's being delivered from that online perspective. So it's not that it's not an answer, but it's an answer that clearly needs it. What they had identified was there was an opportunity to put a little more governance around it to ensure that the quality of what's being delivered is on par with what can be offered in a classroom, particularly if you're taking a certified teacher, right, an AP certified teacher teaching it versus who or what's being provided online. So just keep that in mind in terms of, again, this was a room where you had a variety of people from a variety of sources, and the common denominator in the conversation for that particular topic was ensuring that there was more equitable quality placed around the standards, placed around how they're leveraged, because they identify it was pretty much kind of because there isn't a real structure of governance about it, that it was a little more open-ended, and that was both good and bad at the same time. So just putting that out there from a recent conversation.
I think you covered Kenneth's question about virtual learning. And Jen, let me know if that was a question, but I think you were just sharing about 3D modeling, helping with math teachers. I didn't see a question there, so I was going to move on, but feel free to restate it as a question if there was a question. Rafi Santo, our special guest from New York City, he said, I'm curious about the policy options you laid out, which included a mix of mandates, accountability, and funding, but got the impression that these were separate options. Is that accurate? If so, how would you square a policy mandate that doesn't have resources to support implementation? Jessica, do you want to start? And then Erika, you can add to that as well.
Absolutely. I'm not sure if they could see the slides or not, but
I can share it
one
back.
of the okay. You're right. Those are 3 different options, and that's really to demonstrate that pretty broadly about this. One option is a computer science mandate through the legislature. It's separate. The second one, that's through the state board, to have them think about adding computer science in the state accountability system. And we heard Mr. Mason's response that it's incredibly complicated. It has a domino effect. That's why it's certainly not the first option, but it is an option, and that will motivate behavior. The third option, incentivizing adoption with bonus funding, that's also really hard because we have to figure out where is the funding going to come from. This could be a public-private partnership. None of these are impossible. They're all just very different, and they require a focus on a different body of government and different bodies to work together. To answer your question on the mandate, if you go to the third to last slide on the recommendation, you'll see we did include funding for this. We do not recommend an unfunded mandate. We believe if we were going to mandate computer science, there certainly needs to be funding to go along with it, and this would be a phased-in approach.
Great. Erika, anything to add to that?
Just, echoing what Jessica said, and for us here in Georgia, the challenge, just being cognizant of the challenge for 2018 with this being an election year, that there are key individuals that aren't even in place yet, right? So the normal socializing of this or vetting of this or engaging specific legislators is yet to be defined. So that's part of the process for this, and just basically asking for the latitude and patience and understanding that that's our scenario for this year in 2018. Which, in other words, it would be one thing if we were asking for the funding and we already knew everybody that we would be going to ask for. But some of these folks have yet to even be elected. And the other reality is that if, so for example, the state superintendent is an appointed position, right? Appointed by the governor, who is yet to be elected for 2018. In terms of committee chairs, who would put their eyes on this and have responsibility, right, for the movement of it. So we're understanding the order of magnitude of all of that that's in play. It's absolutely something, Rafi, to your point, that must happen and must be a part of the mindset in making the ask. But Yeah, yeah. I see your notation there. It does seem small. We hear you.
One thing you made a comment, as you guys saw, that 5 million seems small for what 482 districts, 1.6 million students. So.
But this is also, but to your notation, right, Rafi? It's a recognition of the audience and the lack of engagement that's been there previously. So it's almost kind of starting it like with baby steps to gain some groundswell and gain some support, and then being able to build from success and pushing out further. So yes.
And let me just add, Rafi, so I am the facilitator for our collective impact effort. So we're one of the few collective impact efforts around the country at a state level. Just Google it, collective impact. It's sort of a model, and you may be familiar with it. And so our whole idea, the way we've seen this work before in other collective impact settings, which typically work a lot in education and homelessness initiatives around the country, is that you're building a momentum and recognizing that we are asking 5 million for what? The assumption is that, like Erika laid out, there are jobs out there. There are not enough graduates. The assumption is all this investment will lead to a solution on the students graduating. So if we prove it, and so one of the some of the many small projects that we didn't mention, but we can only do small things right now with our limited capacity. So we're all doing little things. And what we want to be able to do is tie it all together and prove that things are working at a local level. Some things you're not even involved with. Gwinnett, Fayette, Thomas County, and South Shore. Everybody's doing something really innovative at a local level. What we want to be able to do is tie it all together, take the little bit of money, or a lot. For me, 5 million is a lot. If you look around, actually, if you look at the other states and how much money they're putting in, it's not that much more. So unless federal dollars come in, the states are only going to put up so much. However, if we have success and if we are collectively working together as one voice, and there's evidence that things are working and there's momentum, and as Kenneth said, if parents are banging on the doors of principals and policymakers, money will show up. So money to me is not the problem. The problem is what these guys said earlier, what Kenneth said about, are people informed, knowledgeable, motivated, and they know what to do? If they don't, then we were all upset and angry, but we don't know what to do. But if we know what to do, and we're motivated, and we show results, then you know what you're asking for. You can point to it and say, right now we don't have a lot to point to. I think once we have something to point to, and we've got people motivated saying, I want what's in that county, I want in that school, or I have it, I want more of it. All my kids are not getting it. And so it's about momentum. So, well, let's see. That's how it's worked in other education sectors, is that because education can be also another political football in terms of money. And so I think if we have success, money will come. And we're also going to look at private donors to help get things going, improve things with us as well. So we're going to look at both public and private combination. So let's go on to another question. Let's see. Anybody else have another question? Yeah. Even NYC is 80 million over 10 years. Yep. Yeah, we're good friends. Maybe that's who got you hip to this. But Michael and Leanne and everybody, is that who told you about us? We're yeah. So we're good friends with them. They're helping us with our planning efforts here. Patricia said, from where I sit as a CS teacher, so I see the first barrier, the just listed awareness as the bottleneck. Those of us in CS arena are hyper aware of CS initiatives and understand the difference between CS, computer literacy, business applications. Even with CS Ed Week, RF code, local recruiting, many admin, counselors, parents, students lack a clear understanding of CS. So could someone speak to that? That's a great point, Patricia. So she's pointing out there's a lot going on already to try to raise awareness. So and correct me if I'm wrong, Patricia, feel free to unmute yourself if I'm not capturing. But basically you're saying we're doing a lot, but there's still not a clear understanding. So is your sort of point or question, how do we get past that? We're doing all this stuff, but there's still a lot of confusion.
It is. I would like to see somehow to reach the people who are putting kids in classes, and that's counselors, parents, students themselves, principals. I've experienced the fact of having counselors not know the difference between intro to digital technology and intro to business technology, or just putting any random kid in my AP computer science class because they have a gap in their schedule. And I like the idea of putting this in its own discipline, so it's treated like foreign language or math or science, as opposed to a special or an elective where it's considered not a real class. But we need to educate the counselors especially so that they understand the value of computer science, what computer science is, that it can be used as a foreign language, etc. All those things that we all know and we've embodied. The kids know because we preach it, but I only get so many kids from the general population. So we need more. We need to spread the word somehow.
So, go ahead, Brian. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, while you were talking, Patricia, I took a note to go and harass the counseling department at the DOE and get them added to my advisory. But there are also some events that any of you all could start to attend, like Counselors for Computing. NCWIT does one of those once a year, and they invite the counselors and talk to them about the different computing options in our high schools so that they know. I believe that has gone a long way in doing what Kenneth was asking earlier as far as people understanding how that it counts for a foreign language and getting people excited about that. That's probably one of the places where they heard that. But other counseling conferences, if you all hear about those, or there's something where counselors will be at and gather, because they're a group of professionals like anybody else, so they gather at professional organizations. Let's engage them in the conversation.
And the only thing I was going to speak to, I would ask if maybe for the group you could send out the HR 1036, the link to that, which was a House resolution that was passed this past legislative season through the efforts of Representative Darshawn Kendrick. The targeted audience, it's a resolution that's focused on an awareness campaign specifically for the targeted audience, our parents and counselors, from the standpoint of and since it was just a resolution, right, it didn't have any appropriations associated with it, but she has already since started the trek this year, going into specific districts and speaking with superintendents to gain funding for that, to back up that effort, right? So to your point, Patricia, the whole genesis around that resolution was a recognition that there are primary audiences that are still very uninformed around the literacy of CS. And as we've already talked about, in tandem with the PD for teachers, or rather than putting stuff on top of teachers, going to the influencers of the students, right? Again, parents, counselors, individuals that are having these conversations with students and empowering them with information so that they can have more objective and informed conversations with students. So it passed late. It was literally the last day when this particular piece passed, like 11:47 p.m. as a matter of fact, on the last day. But in recognition that it needed funding to come to fruition, that's one of the things that she's already working on pre-legislative season to make sure that funding can happen. And she's already received commitments from like DeKalb County and Gwinnett County from those two superintendents respectively. And hopefully, particularly like for
Gwinnett. Mention what 1036 was for.
I thought I did. I said it was an awareness campaign. Yes, no worries.
Is that shared? Can we share that with a group, that legislation?
That's why I was asking Co to put it out there, because it's readily available. Like, you can go to the Georgia State site and catch it, but we have the link, so we can definitely forward that to you and make it available, so that you can see the outline of, and it identifies within it, right, recommendations on how to put this awareness campaign into effect. One of the things that we, Tag Ed, have committed to do is, from a communication standpoint, to be Yeah, to be
Guys, I'm going to put it in the chat. I just found it.
Like we've already pushed it out through our online magazine and posted it out previously, and will continue to do so for all the conversations like this. We recognize it as part of our responsibility to ensure that people are aware that it exists and that the legislation voted on it and brought it, eventually decided that it was relevant and that it is something that we should do. So just wanted you to know that efforts have been in place. Not that it's the end all be all, but that efforts have been in place, and that we're really trying to make sure that this didn't just happen and then it goes by the wayside, that it's actually coming to fruition. And I do want to give, again, Representative Kendrick her credit and her due for the efforts that she's been making to ensure that it's coming to fruition.
Great. Guys, it is 3:58. We've got 2 minutes left. So let me just mention that the next steps are, there were some great ideas here, and we're going to, Brian and I, representing the backbone function for CS4Georgia, the support for the work that, we've got a couple of initiatives going. So we've got the policy effort that Erika and Jessica and a couple of other people are helping to organize. We're supporting them, promoting them. We've got the PD group, the professional development group, that's organizing ideas and trainings, and we're going to try to help raise resources for them. And so along with what's going on here is what we're going to try to, the ideas that I quickly have is that working with our policy work group and Representative Darshan Kendricks, we're going to figure out what can we do to create tools when, if the resources come, great. If not, how can we help provide a PowerPoint, a handout to somebody who, a teacher, an advocate, and provide a training, like a Zoom training to, have trainings. This is how people do organizing. You train, you talk, and then we come back and Kenneth and Patricia talk about their presentation, how it went to the parents or the counselors in the district. And we keep building on that. We share with each other. So it's not rocket science, but it is courage science. You got to figure out, how do you get out? This is what actually Jessica was asking me, Co, how do you get so comfortable talking in front of people? Well, I just think so much of myself, so and so confidence helps. But if you don't, it's okay. We're going to provide you with tools and maybe work with as a team. So we'll come up with ideas and tools on how we can empower people and hear from them all over the state. So that's one idea I have. And we'll follow up on data on the effectiveness of virtual learning. We'll talk about the teacher pipeline. I was brainstorming with Brian on how I'm going to create a graphic. Since teacher supply is key, I'm going to create a graphic on our website that'll be basically our dashboard, where we'll have the sources of where teachers are coming from: pre-service, professional development. What else did you say, Brian? And so there's like 2 other categories that he had. And so basically, industry. Yeah, and industry, and basically training them how to teach. They already know the work. And so we're going to have tools that inform people that we need this many teachers. This is where teachers are coming from. This is how you can help. And so between those 2 things of raising awareness and getting us teachers. So we'll do those. And so it is 4 o'clock. And feel free to say any last words on the chat box. And this was very helpful. So Jessica, Erika, thank you so much for all the leadership you're providing. And please keep letting us know, and we'll keep sharing with others what you guys are up to, what your advice is. Kenneth, thank you for everything you're doing. And of course, the almost Dr. Brian Cox at the state. He's ABD, all but the dissertation. And Tracy, everybody who's doing great stuff. We need more models like Tracy's of people partnering up with teachers and other solutions till we get there. So thank you, everybody. Any last, no questions, but any last statements before we go? All right, we can't hear you, Jessica. Peace and love. Thank you, Kenneth. That's a nice statement. And coffee, or whatever that was you were drinking.
Thank you, Pro.
Thank you, guys. Very excited. And so we'll keep everybody updated. And the policy one, we'll probably repeat this. Actually, sorry, quick question for timeline, Jessica or Kenneth or Erika. When is a good time for us to loop back before the legislature in session, or when are you guys done with your think tanking work, so you can tell us what you guys have decided? When do we loop back, and so that we can start empowering people and say, this is what we need you to ask?
I think this unformed time is a good time now, like unformed in that we don't know we don't know what the Senate and House education committees are. We don't know the government. I think it is scary, sort of, but if we have our stuff together going in and have allies and advocates and people that are accomplices with us in this thinking as sort of the, it all settles in, I think we keep the conversation going. We have a state board meeting tomorrow, okay?
Oh, nice.
Tomorrow is a state board meeting, and the policy chair, Helen Rice, has already asked me, like, okay, she had this call on her calendar yesterday. She's like, so she's keeping an eye on what CS4Georgia is doing, wants to be an advocate, but we're also, I think the state board is also looking at, we don't know what's going to happen next either. So, but I think this time is good for us to I'm glad you met with the representative. We can seek other allies right now in this sort of in-between time.
Great. And Brian is going to tomorrow, speaking of so many things that are happening tomorrow, Brian is going to a gathering by code.org of all the state entities that are working on, I see Ruffy nodding as well. So there's a gathering, Brian, I think, Colorado, of state DOE.
That's not till Thursday, but yeah, the code.org state policy forum is Thursday and Friday. And then CS for All is next month. And then
everybody here. We got teachers on this call. We got Mr. ABD Brian Cox. We got Kenneth. We got Jessica, Erika. There's also Ruffy. I don't know where he dropped in from. And so Patricia. And so we've got everything here. There's no reason these great minds can't figure it out. I'm feeling very positive.
I apologize. I made a misstatement regarding superintendent, right? Elected position. So even more critical versus appointed. So, but
okay, right.
Which makes it, again, a great question mark.
Yes.
Along with everything else. So just, how you rethink stuff in your head. You're like, oh, did you really say that? So my bad.
This is a recording. Thank you. So
I like what Kenneth said. I like where we are.
So this will be emailed. There will be a summary of my notes. Feel free to let me know if I need to edit something. And there will be a recording. And we will follow up with you guys with tools, ideas. Feel free to email us. Sign up at CS4Georgia. That's where the updates will be, because I don't know your emails per se. So sign up for CS4Georgia website and share with others. And we'll be back and we'll keep this going. Thank you, everybody.
Tracy, hit me up. I saw your hit me up, okay? Tracy?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear all that.
I said I saw your message about needing more schools, so just hit me up.
Yeah, I'm actually talking to Reginald right now about your day of code too.
Got you. Okay. Oh, yes. No, I knew that. I didn't know if there was a broader need that you had. So
yes, I do for coming years, but I'll send you an email.
Okay. Cool deal.
Hey, Patricia, remind me, which school are you at again?
I am in Thomasville at Thomasville Scholars Academy. I just moved here this year. I've been at Thomas County Schools for the last 5 years. So I'm in a new building a new program. So we've doubled our computer science faculty in this county with my replacement at the county, and then myself here at Thomasville City. We now have 2. And so glad to be here.
So you guys are, Thomas County is part of that Aligning for Impact grant, right?
Thomas County, yes. Well, I'm not sure about Aligning for Impact. Yeah, we were doing vertical alignment there, where we were trying
to. The NSF grant. Thomas County, that's in South Georgia, right?
Yes, that's where I worked last year and the previous 5 years. So yes, I was part of the AP mentoring program and vertical alignment between the lower grades and the higher grades. And
I would love to, as we develop tools, Patricia, I'd love to work with you to see if we can test making presentations to parents and counselors and principals. If not me, we've got people down there who are supporting some of our efforts. And we'd love to work with you to see what works to engage parents and what questions do they have. So if you'd be up for that, we'd love to stay in touch with you about that.
I'm in a different system now, but I would still love to work with you on that.
Oh, yeah. That just happened to be a grant we're working with. So Brian and I don't have capacity for 182 school districts, but, you know, a little bit at time, whoever we can make time for. So we'd love to start developing tools to raise awareness and start testing them and learning from them. And so since you've already something you care about, raising awareness, I wanted to check in with you if you were interested. We'd love to stay in touch with you, and you could be one of the folks we collaborate with to test things out, particularly since you're in Thomas and Thomasville area. We can check it out in both areas.
Definitely. We have Thomasville City is a much smaller system, and we can do something with the elementary grades all the way through high school. So this is our first year of offering computer science. I have 2 sections of CS principals for the high school, and then I'm teaching middle school, 6th through 8th graders.
Wow.
But I think that our elementary grades would benefit and be open to doing something in their schools. We have 3 elementary schools here. So
nice.
It's I'm looking forward to building this program, and I'm very happy that I left a working program with a replacement.
That's very rare in computer science. So
they hired a guy who has industry experience. He actually worked with NASA, and so I feel good about that. And I've reached out to him.
That's great.
We compete in football, but we shouldn't compete in computer science.
Well, that's right. Isn't Thomas County a big football?
Yes.
Well, yeah, I remember seeing 7A, isn't some huge school at the Georgia Dome or something?
Thomas County is maybe 5 or 6A, and then Thomasville is, I think, 1 or 2A, maybe is little. But they were state champs last year, or got to. They played in the championship game.
Wow.
Where I work now. So, yeah, they're big rivals. But the kids don't know that. They're all the same.
Well, thank you, guys. This is like a family reunion that refuses to end, so I'm going to stop the recording.